There is something deeply surreal about watching an era truly end in Baltimore for so long. The presence on the sideline felt permanent, almost untouchable, to the point where imagining a Ravens team without that familiar figure pacing the field seemed impossible. When you think back to the early days, the first interactions, the early trust that was built, it becomes clear why this moment hits differently on a personal level. There are nothing but respectful memories. Moments that remind you that behind the headset was a human being who treated people the right way and created opportunities when he did not have to. That personal side does matter, especially when you consider how many lives intersect with a franchise over nearly 2 decades. There are stories of players and families who were given chances, of doors opened simply because effort was recognized. Those things are real and they should never be dismissed. At the same time, the league is unforgiving, and sentiment can only carry a team so far when expectations are sky high, and the window to win feels wide open. From a football standpoint, the reality is harder to ignore. This roster was built to win immediately. The message from the top was clear long before the season spiraled. This was not about patience or gradual progress. This was about results. When the year began with a 1-5 record, every loss felt heavier, every missed opportunity more damaging. The climb back was steep, and even when things stabilized, the sense that something fundamental was not clicking never fully went away. Over time, patterns become impossible to overlook. Postseason exits followed similar scripts. Critical moments slipped away, and fourth-quarter collapses lingered in the minds of fans and players alike. It was not about one mistake or one decision, but about the accumulation of moments that suggested the message had grown stale. In today's league, longevity like that is rare, and reaching 18 seasons with one organization is almost unheard of. That kind of stability was once a badge of honor, a symbol of trust and continuity, but eventually it can turn into a limitation rather than a strength. This is why the shift feels less like a shock and more like an acceptance of what had been coming. It was not personal. It was not fueled by resentment. It was about acknowledging that the voice in the room needed to change. When you go through the same cycle too many times, even with elite talent under center, the organization has to ask whether a different direction is the only way to unlock what has been missing. That new direction is already taking shape, and it is happening quickly. The search for the next leader has begun with urgency, reflecting the belief that this team cannot afford a long reset. Names are being discussed, interviews requested, and familiar faces are back in the building. One of those names brings a strong connection to Baltimore, both from a playing background and from time spent on the coaching staff. That familiarity matters, especially for a franchise that has always valued continuity over chaos. The appeal there is not just nostalgia, it is about understanding the culture, knowing what it means to coach in this city, and carrying forward standards that were set long ago by legendary defenses and relentless leadership. There is a belief that someone shaped by those environments carries an internal blueprint of excellence, an understanding of how things are supposed to be done when the lights are brightest. At the same time, continuity cannot become complacency. The question is whether that familiarity can coexist with innovation, whether a new leader can honor the past without being trapped by it. This organization has always tried to model itself after franchises that prize stability, avoiding the constant churn that has plagued others around the league. The fear of becoming a revolving door is real, and it influences every decision being made right now. That is why the early stages of this search feel so deliberate. It is not about rushing to a flashy name or reacting emotionally to a disappointing season. It is about finding someone who can command a room, connect with players, and still see the entire operation clearly. From roster construction to game management on Sundays, the next head coach will not just inherit a team. He will inherit expectations that demand immediate payoff. The discussions around defensive leadership versus offensive vision are already heating up, and they reflect a broader philosophical debate. Do you prioritize energy, toughness, and identity on one side of the ball, trusting that the rest of the staff will fill in the gaps? Or do you lean into creativity and scheme, building an offense that maximizes the unique skill set of a franchise quarterback and stresses defenses in new ways? Whichever path is chosen, the stakes could not be higher. This roster is too talented to waste time learning on the job. Yet bold moves often require a leap of faith. That tension is what defines this moment for Baltimore. It is the space between honoring what was and daring to imagine what could be. knowing that the margin for error is thin and the pressure to win now is very real. As the conversation moves forward, the focus naturally shifts from why the change happened to what kind of leader can actually take this team where it wants to go. This is not a rebuild situation. And that reality shapes every layer of the decision. The Ravens are staring at a narrow championship window, driven by a quarterback in his prime and a roster constructed to compete immediately. That context makes the head coaching hire less about potential and more about readiness. One of the most compelling angles in this search is the idea of leadership presence. It is not enough to draw up schemes or manage a game plan on paper. The next head coach has to walk into a room full of professionals, many of them established stars, and instantly command respect. That comes from clarity, conviction, and the ability to communicate expectations without hesitation. Players can sense uncertainty, and in a division as physical and unforgiving as this one, any hesitation gets exposed quickly. This is why some candidates naturally stand out more than others. There are coaches whose reputations are built on connecting with players, on demanding accountability while still earning trust. Those traits resonate in a locker room that has experienced both regular season success and postseason frustration. The challenge is translating that emotional intelligence into consistent results. When games tighten and pressure peaks, the organizational philosophy also plays a massive role. Here, Baltimore has never been a franchise that panics. It values structure, long-term vision, and internal development. That approach has paid dividends over the years, but it also creates a unique challenge when change finally becomes unavoidable. The replacement is not just filling a vacancy, but stepping into a legacy defined by patience and high standards. There is also the question of how the next coach aligns with the front office, roster construction, player development, and schematic identity all need to work in harmony. If there is friction at the top, it eventually trickles down to the field. This is where experience within the organization, or at least familiarity with its values, becomes a powerful advantage. Understanding how decisions are made and why they are made can smooth the transition during a critical time. On the field, the biggest variable remains the offense. For years, flashes of brilliance have been followed by stretches of inconsistency. Especially when it mattered most, the league has evolved. Defenses have adjusted, and the margin for error has shrunk. Unlocking sustained explosive play without sacrificing balance is no longer optional. It is a requirement. Whoever steps in must have a clear vision for how to elevate the offense beyond what it has been. That vision has to extend beyond play design. It includes game management, situational awareness, and the willingness to adapt when the original plan is not working. Some of the most painful moments in recent seasons have come from an inability to adjust on the fly, from sticking to an approach long after the opponent had solved it. That cannot continue if the goal is to compete deep into January. At the same time, defense remains a foundational piece of the Ravens' identity. Physicality, discipline, and intensity are non-negotiable traits in Baltimore. Any head coach, regardless of background, must respect that tradition and ensure it remains a strength rather than an afterthought. The challenge is blending that identity with a modern understanding of how games are won in today's NFL. This balancing act becomes even more complex when you consider staff construction. Firing a head coach effectively resets the entire operation. Coordinators, position coaches, and support staff are all part of the equation. The next leader will shape not only the playbook, but the daily environment inside the building. Every hire sends a message about priorities and philosophy. That is why this decision feels so heavy. There is no room for a learning curve that lasts multiple seasons. Fans understand that risk is inherent, but patience will be thin if the same issues resurface under a new voice. The expectation is growth, not excuses, progress, not promises. As interviews continue and speculation swirls, one thing remains clear: this franchise believes it is close. Close enough that the wrong decision could set it back years, and the right one could unlock everything that has been missing. That pressure is real, and it will define the next chapter of Ravens football as soon as the new head coach steps into the building. There is also the emotional reset that comes with a coaching change. Something that cannot be measured on a stat sheet but often shows up on Sundays. Players hear a different voice, practices feel different, accountability is reinforced in new ways, and habits are challenged. Sometimes that alone is enough to unlock a sharper edge, especially for a team that has felt stuck in similar outcomes despite different rosters and circumstances. Another layer to consider is how the next head coach handles adversity in real time. Every season brings injuries, momentum swings, and moments where plans fall apart. The Ravens have lived through stretches where one setback seemed to snowball into several, and the inability to halt that slide became costly. The next leader has to be someone who can stabilize the group when things get uncomfortable. Keeping focus intact when pressure rises, division dynamics only amplify that challenge. The AFC North is not forgiving, and there are no weeks off. Every opponent brings physicality, familiarity, and a willingness to drag games into chaos. Winning this division consistently requires more than talent. It requires emotional toughness, discipline, and preparation that leaves little room for self-inflicted mistakes. There is also the responsibility of shaping the future beyond just the next season. Young players will look to the new head coach as the standard setter, the person who defines what it means to be a Raven moving forward. Development, confidence, and trust all stem from that relationship. Get it right, and the organization builds momentum that lasts. Get it wrong, and even elite talent can stagnate. All of this underscores why the decision cannot be reduced to schemes or resumes alone. The Ravens are searching for someone who can blend leadership, adaptability, and vision into a single presence. Someone who understands the urgency of now without losing sight of sustainability, and who can turn lessons from past failures into fuel for what comes next. There is also the reality of managing expectations externally. The next head coach will face intense scrutiny from the moment he is introduced. Every comment, every press conference, and every early result will be analyzed. Handling that pressure without letting it seep into the locker room is a skill in itself. The team needs insulation from noise, especially early, as systems are installed and chemistry is built. Ultimately, this transition is about redefining how success is measured. Winning seasons are no longer enough. Division titles alone do not satisfy the standard that has been set. The Ravens are chasing something more demanding, something that requires precision, adaptability, and resilience when the margin disappears. The search for the next head coach is the first step in determining whether this franchise can finally turn its potential into sustained postseason dominance. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. A bombshell is rippling through league circles and lighting up Baltimore talk radio. Matt Judon could be on his way back to the Ravens, not as a supporting piece, but as the unquestioned face of the defense. The buzz intensified after a report attributed to ESPN suggested that conversations behind the scenes have gained traction, fueling speculation that a reunion long considered unlikely may suddenly be within reach. Judon's history in Baltimore gives the rumor immediate credibility. Drafted and developed by the Ravens, he embodied the franchise's defensive identity with relentless pressure, emotional leadership, and a knack for showing up when moments tightened. His departure left a void that was filled by committee, but never fully replaced in spirit. Now, whispers suggest the organization may be ready to restore a familiar tone setter, one capable of aligning talent with attitude. Sources close to the situation describe the idea as more than nostalgia. The Ravens' defense, while deep and versatile, has lacked a singular voice on the edge. Someone offenses must scheme around and teammates naturally follow. Judon's potential return is being framed as a cultural reset as much as a tactical move, with coaches reportedly intrigued by how his presence could elevate younger pass rushers and stabilize the unit in critical stretches. Skeptics point to financial hurdles and the complexity of reshaping a locker room hierarchy midstream. Still, the rumor persists, buoyed by the belief that Judon's familiarity with the system and city could shorten any adjustment period around the league. Rival executives are said to be monitoring the chatter closely, aware that a motivated Judon in purple would alter preparation and expectations. For now, nothing is official, and the Ravens remain publicly silent. Yet in Baltimore, the mere possibility has reignited memories of dominant defenses and sparked a simple question. What if the leader they've been searching for has been gone all along, waiting for the right moment to come home? That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.